The Renault Clio is a small hatchback with a plush-feeling cabin and a very practical boot, but it doesn't look as eye-catching or feel as comfortable to drive as some alternatives. This Clio looks almost identical to the old model, despite using numerous all-new components. Sure, the hook-shaped headlights look pretty swanky and RS line models get a few extra sporty touches, but these alone won't be enough to steal admiring glances away from the likes of the more stylish 208. Thankfully, things quickly improve when you step inside. The Renault's smart, minimalist dashboard feels much posher than the old car's confusing collection of buttons and blobby plastic trims and, besides a few scratchy plastics low down on the doors, all the materials you'll touch regularly feel soft and well screwed together. Another feather in the Clio's cap is its portrait infotainment system on more expensive trims, or available optionally lower down the range. It's more logically laid out than in some other Renault models. Comes with many must-have smartphone mirroring features. It's not just glitzy tech that the Renault Clio does well, there's also plenty of space for you to stretch out in the front and a decent amount of seat adjustment to help you get comfy. You can't really say the same about the back seats, though. Anyone over 6 foot tall will struggle for headroom and, unless you're just carrying kids, you can forget about using all 3 back seats at once. Thankfully, there will be plenty of space for everyone's luggage in the Clio's roomy boot because it's even more spacious than a VW Polo's. Once you're packed up and on your way, you'll notice that the Renault Clio tends to fidget and bounce a little around town and on rough roads. The Clio isn't particularly easy to see out of either, thanks to its small side windows and super slim rear window. At least its small size, light steering and optional 360-degree surround view camera helps take the stress out of parallel parking. You can also get a driver assistance system to help take the edge off lengthy traffic jams that'll accelerate, brake and steer for you, providing you keep your hands on the wheel. It even works at motorway speeds, but you can only get it on cars with Renault's rather lethargic automatic gearbox. The standard manual box is pretty easy to use, and the Renault Clio's economical petrol engines feel reasonably perky without being too noisy or costly to run. This all makes the Renault Clio a good all-round city car, but one that doesn't really have the wow factor to stand out in a dense crowd of more desirable, more fun and more upmarket alternatives. That being said, if you're after a small car that's easy to drive, has a big boot and feels impressively posh inside, then the Clio's well worth considering. The Clio range might not be quite as extensive as in previous years, but there are still 4 models available. These stretch from a well-equipped but low-priced Evolution model up to the sporty-looking and well-equipped RS line and E-Tech engineered versions. Unusually, all of the models are available with a choice of normal petrol engines mated to a 6-speed manual gearbox or a more powerful, and economical, and expensive, hybrid with an auto box. Even the Evolution trim is well priced compared to rivals and includes 7.0-inch infotainment touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. You also get 16-inch diamond-cut alloy wheels and a 7.0-inch digital driver's display. The Renault Clio's compact size makes it pretty easy to drive in town. The pillars beside the windscreen aren't particularly wide, so you get a good view out at junctions, and the light steering means your arms won't tire if you need to make a 3-point turn or squeeze into a parallel parking space. While the petrol engine and manual gearbox are perfectly adequate and easy to use in traffic, the hybrids will make the most sense if you are regularly venturing into town. The auto gearbox saves pumping a clutch and the car will run on electric power at lower speeds. That's good for air quality as well as fuel consumption. Unfortunately, it isn't all good news when you are in the city. The Renault Clio's rather small rear windows, narrow rear windscreen and tall backseat headrests severely limit rearward visibility. You can get a 360-degree surround view camera system to help when parking, but squeezing into a narrow space is still more stressful than in the likes of a VW Polo or Skoda Fabia. The glove box is big enough to hold a small handbag too, and there's a storage tray for sunglasses up by the rearview mirror. The back doors open almost at right angles to the rest of the car to help access, but they're very narrow, which makes getting in a little tricky. The Renault Clio's interior looks and feels just as posh as in some more expensive German alternatives, but its infotainment system isn't the easiest to use. The Renault Clio interior looks more like it belongs in a posh saloon than in a cheap and cheerful hatchback. The sweeping dashboard with its two-tone color scheme, neatly integrated air vents and metal effect knobs and dials is a far cry from the awkward, cheap-looking design you got in the older versions of the Clio. It doesn't just look like a premium product inside, The new Renault Clio feels impressively posh, too. All models get lane departure warning and lane keep assist, plus traffic sign recognition with speed alert is also included, as is cruise control with a speed limiter function. Active emergency braking is also featured, including cyclist and pedestrian detection functionality.